Yes.
Yes. Hi, Pam.
Hi, how are you? Just give
I'm,
me a few minutes to set this thing up a bit because it's a bit too high.
oh, yeah.
Um,
What about me? Am I showing okay? It's not too high, right? Or too low?
no, it's not too high. No.
Okay.
I just need to make it go a bit lower.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that is that better?
that's much better. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Well, I want to thank you for joining me on this live. I really appreciate you doing that.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, you and I, we have a lot in common.
Yes.
We are both from Zimbabwe. We both have been victims of domestic violence as
Mm-hmm.
children and as adults as well. That's why we are talking about, you know, the effects of domestic violence on our children.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that, a lot of people really don't talk much about children as victims. The focus is mostly on adults, partners. One partner is an abuser, the other one is a victim. That's where the
Yes.
focus is, and we forget about the children. Just a backstory. I started witnessing domestic violence when I was 7 years old, when my father married a second wife. I remember
Yes.
my brothers and I just standing outside my mom and dad's bedroom door, hearing my mom crying, crying, screaming, groaning, and begging my father to stop hurting her. I would go to sleep and
Yes.
just cry myself to sleep, because my brother and I, we felt, helpless. We couldn't help our mother. All we did was just
Mm.
comfort each other. I was the youngest, and my other brothers were, older than me. Just comfort each other and
Yes.
just cry, just go to bed crying ourselves to sleep. So that
Yes.
affected us, a lot growing up. It makes you sad, but people don't realize that. And when I was 14 years
Mm.
old, my mother left. And at 14, as a teenager, a girl, that's when you need your mother most. So it
Mm-hmm.
was it was really hard on me, um, as a girl, And fast forward, I met my ex-husband when I was 18 because I
Yes.
actually didn't feel loved at all at home. I was with a stepmother, and I want to say my father did. He was very loving. I must say that, even though he was abusive to my mom, I don't remember any day that my father beat me up or when he didn't show me love. The only thing that
Mm.
he did that I remember I didn't like was when he beat up my mother. Anyway, but
Yes.
obviously it was different when I was with my stepmother because my father was not home all the time. He was a truck driver, so you'd go away for weeks, 2 weeks at a time. So we were stuck. My siblings and I were stuck with our stepmother, who was not very nice.
Yes.
Anyway, so I met this guy and I fell in love with him. And before you know it, I was pregnant. He was very nice to me and all that. And 6 months into our marriage, he started abusing me. But initially, I thought that was normal. Growing up, seeing my father beating up my mother, I just thought, he loves me. He tells me not to talk to men, not to wear this dress. He told me everything, how to dress, who to talk to. Sometimes I wasn't even allowed to leave the house. And I just thought, oh, he's madly in love with me. He doesn't want me to go out. He wants me to be here for him. He doesn't want me to dress like this. He doesn't want other men to look at me. So he just wants me for him. So he must love me. But thank God, one day, a light bulb came on and I left and I'm glad
Mm,
I left because a lot of women don't have that courage, to leave. And I'm glad I
mm-hmm,
left. And I didn't know that I was doing my son a big favor by leaving. I actually did him a big, big favor because if I had stayed, um, he would have witnessed even more domestic violence. Because now he says he can't remember anything. He doesn't. Because when I left,
mm,
I think he had just turned 2. Yeah, he was just 2. So when we talk about it, he says, no, I don't remember anything. I don't remember him beating you up. He doesn't remember anything. I remember
mm.
also growing up, I grew up in Kambuzuma. We had what they call them boys' skyers. Remember those rooms that were built on the side? We had a
Yeah.
tenant, Anand Muroja, and this finds my Jenny. My Jenny was dating Baba Manu. Baba Manu was married, of course. He just lived down the street from us. So my Manu lived Kumusha, but he was dating, obviously cheating on my Manu, dating this lady that was renting a room, at our place. And they used to fight as well. For some reason, I never forgot her saying, like Baba Manu would say, am I Jenny? Do you know I can commit murder? I can commit murder right now. And my Jenny would say, Komita murder yacho, they'll be fighting. Komita murder yacho, komita murder yacho. It's stuck in my head that I can actually see their faces right now as I'm talking about it. That's how,
Mm,
trauma, domestic violence. I mean, this happened when I was probably 6, 7, 8-ish that time, but I remember it vividly.
yeah.
My Jenny and Baba Man. See, things like this, it
Mm,
actually made me, seeing that, then witnessing my mother being beaten as well. That's why initially I thought, you know what? This is normal. Now we know. So, over to you now. Can you tell us how old you were when you started witnessing domestic violence?
I started witnessing domestic violence in our family from a very young age. So let's say about 5, 6, 7, 8. So it was all through those years, 5, 6, 7,
Mm-hmm.
8, and 9.
Yeah.
It was something else, but um, we were totally helpless. And when you're a child and you kind of you watch certain movies on the TV and you see people fighting and stuff, and you see how the children become assertive and confront their parents if they're doing something wrong. So I saw one movie, and this girl was being so assertive with her parents. She was telling her father, no, don't do that. And of course, I started believing in myself that I could confront my father. I could say to him, no, don't do that. Why are you being so horrible? And so one day we went to a wedding, and when we came home, I walked into the kitchen, and my father was facing my mother face to face, like right close up like that. And he was speaking to her, saying,
Mm-hmm.
so you want to show off? Why are you behaving funny? And he was headbutting her.
Oh.
As I'm speaking about it now, I feel kind of not emotional, but uh, maybe a little bit of anger
Mm-hmm.
as to how dare headbutt another person. You know that that person is not going to hit you back. You know that that person is afraid of you.
Yeah.
So and then the next thing I knew is I ran outside into the car where my uncle was, and I said, daddy's hitting mom. And he came out, and then he was trying to diffuse the whole situation. My mother was crying, and I was saying, I was standing in the corridor waiting to confront my father because he had
Mm-hmm.
gone into the loo, and he came out, and I was saying to him, why do you have to be so horrible? Why are you being so mean? I was acting out this little girl in the movie, being assertive, trying to catch my father's attention and
Mm-hmm.
to make him see sense so that he could stop being abusive towards my mother, but
Right.
it backfired. He started screaming, and his body language, if somebody is dominating, authoritative and frightening, their demeanor and body language speaks to you. So he was overpowering, overtowering, and shouting and saying, go to your room, get out of here. And of course, me as a little child, I'm powerless.
Of course,
I'm
yeah.
scared out of my wits. I ran into my bedroom, and that was one of the memories I have. But yeah, I was about that age when I started noticing domestic violence or physical abuse between my
Right,
parents.
right. So, like emotionally, how did this affect you? Were you like scared of your father? Like even if he wasn't being abusive to your mother, just sitting there, were you, like scared of him?
Absolutely. There was no joke about this, no doubt that I was afraid of him. He was somebody that you didn't enjoy being around at all.
Mm,
If you were laughing or joking, he would probably scream from the living room, you're laughing too hard, one of you is going to cry. If he came home, we'd all disappear and go into our individual bedrooms. We'd just be out of the way. And
right,
we used to know when things were about to happen. I remember that he would be sitting there in the living room. Maybe we're watching TV. We're intently concentrating on watching TV, trying not to, have any eye contact or any conversations with him. And
right.
he'd start requesting. He'd start by clearing his throat. He'd make those clearing throat sounds, and then we just knew, because this was a repetitive action of his, where you
Right.
know that something's going to happen or something's going to be said. He'd start clearing his throat, and then from there, he'd ask you to turn the volume down on the television. And you
Mm.
knew the moment he would say, turn the volume down, you knew that something is now about to
But to go
go
down.
down. you know yes, something is about to go down. Someone is going to get beat, someone is going to get told to leave the room, someone is going to get shouted at, or someone is going to go through the inquisition, questioning and things like that. So
Mhm.
the moment he would start clearing his throat, we would start getting up to go. I'm telling you, we all knew
Wow.
this. Oh, he's starting to clear his throat. We'd look at each other and we were gone out of that room. Even if it was for one of us that he was trying to clear his throat and deal with us, we just disappeared
Disappear.
and we'd go to sleep. Even if we'd disappear. Even if we didn't want to sleep, we'd
Yeah.
just go to bed.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how, awful it was. We were just so weary of his behavior. There were very few times where he would be laughing and joking with us. And
Yeah.
and and it was, how can I explain it? It was like, if he was laughing, then you'd laugh. If he was angry, then you would just withdraw. So you would just go along with his
With his
mood.
mood.
So it would be
Yeah.
like yes, you'd go along with the temperature in the
Yeah.
room, the atmosphere in the room. That's how you would go along with it. You couldn't live outside of that. You couldn't live as a normal child and just enjoy child life,
Yeah.
just
Right.
being silly, whatever kind of thing. um there wasn't anything like
There was
that.
no freedom, basically. We felt
No,
restricted, like, on what, you couldn't
absolutely. It was
express
like
yourself.
walking on
Yeah.
eggshells
Right.
all the time. Mm.
Like, yeah, like for me, I was also scared of my father, even though he never beat me up. But, I was actually scared of him. Like, it was like when he walked into the room, it was like a lion just walked into the room. Yeah, because I'll be thinking, oh my God, I hope he's not gonna beat my mom. That makes you,
Mm.
feel, I just felt like I had nothing to do or to say to help my mother, just around him. I'll be just watching him to
Yes,
make sure, is he gonna attack? What is he gonna do? But parents don't realize that you're making your child feel that way. That's not, good for the child. That's trauma right there. Like, because
absolutely.
a father is supposed to be your first love, supposed to show you how a woman should be treated, you know. So if they are beating up your mother, basically what they are showing you is that, it's okay for your husband, whenever you get married, to beat you up. So people don't realize
Mm-hmm.
that. So how are you with your children in terms of parenting? Do you think that this has affected the way you were raised? Has it affected you in any way in terms of your relationship
Well,
with your children?
yes, right. So I am a parent of one. I have one
Mm-hmm,
child, and she's grown now. How old is she? She's 26. So, in the years that she was growing up, let me just backtrack now. Uh, Adding on to your point of how domestic violence in your family affected you as an adult and the choices that you made,
mm-hmm,
um, and you ended up being with an abusive man because you thought that was normal,
right.
is exactly what happens to a child that goes through domestic violence or experiences or sees or hears domestic violence.
Mm-hmm,
The choices that we make as adults are as a result of what we went through and experienced and saw and heard when we were growing up and what we've learned. So now, fast forward, the choice that I made in terms of a partner uh, were because of what I went through. I was running away from the domestic abuse that was in the family, even into
mm-hmm,
my teenage and early adult years. The
mm-hmm,
lifestyle that we were living was just, and it's not to say that it was the woman that my father was with at the time, because my mother had now passed away. They had been divorced for over, 15 years and stuff. But it wasn't her, it was him. He still carried on his persona. He still had his character. He still was the manipulative, angry, moody, depressive man that he
mm-hmm,
was. And so for me to break away from that life, I made a decision to go into another relationship, which was a big mistake because when I was now in that relationship, I didn't know how to look after my child. I didn't know.
mm-hmm.
There was nobody to tell me this is how you raise children because there was nothing for me to use as a reference point.
Right.
So I was just raising my child the best way I knew how.
Mm-hmm,
Television, maybe I would copy things on TV,
mm-hmm,
uh, copy things maybe by hearsay, people passing by talking about their children. Even, I mean, like in Zimbabwe, obviously, we have people like our fathers, sisters, Vanatete, they will
yeah.
tell us, what to do, etc. But, it was a whole lot of messed up issues as well on their part. They were messed up in their
Oh
own
yeah.
way.
They'll be dealing
Um,
with, the
so,
same.
yeah. So, things were pretty much messed up anyway. Raising her was something that I had to learn along the way. So, when I came to the UK, I came with her, and things were pretty much, difficult as well in the first years. I don't know,
Mm-hmm,
1999, round about there. Things were really, really hard. You don't know the system here. And then there's the fear of social services and things like that.
Yeah.
That was, that we didn't know about in Zimbabwe. So you send your
Right.
child back home and then you send them back to this man who you were with. And then, when things get better, you have your papers and stuff, you say, okay, bring the child. That's what I was trying to do. It was a
Yeah.
fight again. So my time in raising her was a very short time, I think a span of about 5 years. After that, it was the battle of trying to get her. So by the time we were now beginning to communicate, she was like, I think 16, where we were now
Mm-hmm.
allowed to communicate because there was that restriction of communication. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
being told as and when you could speak to your child, so that was another uh, a story of, a lot of abuse there.
Right.
Um, and so the relationship between my daughter and I was quite jagged. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I remember the conversation I had with her one time when I was talking to her. Um, she got upset with me, and then she unfriended me on Facebook. She blocked me on all her numbers, and then she sent this big message: you were never there anyway, so I don't see why you should tell me what to do. You're my mother, but you were never my mother. you know I mean, there were hurtful things that she said, and I had to just accept it.
Right.
It wasn't her fault. I didn't put any blame on her. I had to
Mm-hmm.
accept that, and I had to let her vent it out. I had to let her release all her anger. You
Right.
know, I would cry and sob and wish that things were different,
Mm-hmm.
wish that things were changed, wish that I had that opportunity to raise her myself and be a mother to her.
Right.
And so our relation was very jagged. But if you see us today, I'm telling you, Sylvia, you will not believe that there was a lot of stormy days and stormy nights
Right.
in our relationship. We are like this,
Is she in
we
the
are like
she's in the
this.
UK with you?
No, no, no. She's now married. So she lives in Zimbabwe with her husband.
Yeah.
Um, and he's such a wonderful, wonderful son-in-law. When she told me she was getting married, I cried. I cried. I said, "Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, my child has grown. I haven't had enough time to be with her, but that's just the way it was.
Right.
I had no choice." So she got married, and when I spent time with both of them, meeting my son-in-law for the first time, oh, what a wonderful day, wonderful time that we spent together. He's such a lovely young man.
Yeah.
But yes, our relationship was very jagged, uh, but we worked through it. Uh, I certainly kept the communication lines open. I let her know that, look, I'm sorry I messed up,
Mm-hmm.
but let's work through it. I am here now. Allow me that chance to become your mother, to be your mother,
Right.
you know. So it was a journey, but things are quite sweet right now.
For me, I really got mad at my mom when she left because, I was thinking, why are you leaving me? Like, leaving me with this woman? That's
Mm-hmm,
not my mother.
mm-hmm,
But I've
mm-hmm,
always regretted that my mother passed away before I even went to UK in like early 90s. Um, but when I started talking about domestic violence, my experience with domestic violence, I started understanding that it wasn't their fault. Like now I get it. I just wish she hadn't passed away because I would have told her that, you know what, mom, I get you. Now I understand. I understand why you left. You did what was best for you and for us. Because obviously, we could have just continued watching her being beat, or she could have been killed. Who knows? So, but as you get
mm-hmm.
older, you start understanding things. It's different when you're older, like our age now. We understand. As for my son, I was lucky that I was able to bring him to, I was in the UK. He's here now in the US. But I hadn't told him everything that went on because, he doesn't remember. He was only 2 years old. So when I went to UK, he followed me 2 years after. Was like you said, you gotta sort out your papers and whatever. Then the father was, for some reason I was surprised. I thought he was gonna give me a hard time. He let him join me in London. But the first time he got the details of what actually happened is when he read my book. I remember my son crying. He's 33 now. He was 28, 27 when he read my book. He cried. He said, "Why didn't you tell me he did this to you?" And he said, "Mom, if you had told me this is what he did, I would have never spoken to him. I wouldn't be talking to him right now." And I said, "Well, he's your father. I'm not going to tell you to hate your father or whatever, but that's what happened." Because the most thing that surprised him was that my ex-husband also slept with my little sister. She was 16. And, I talk about it in the book. And he was like, he did what? But he told me you cheated on him. You see, he was twisting it around. I didn't know that he was having these discussions with him, but I wasn't talking bad about him. But anyway, I said, you know what? You can call one of our cousins. I said, call her now because she doesn't even know that we're calling, and ask about my sister. Everybody knows about it. All, our families know about it. And he called, and she confirmed it that, yeah, sure. That's what happened. That's what your father did. And that's when he was like, oh, I wish you had told me this, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, it does affect. I mean, even if he doesn't remember the violence, but just reading my book actually affected him. He actually cried, like, he did this to you, it affects children big time. Anyway, so what are the 3 nuggets of advice that you would want to share with parents out there regarding exposing our children to domestic violence?
Yes, the 3 nuggets that I would say are extremely important. And I'm saying this because I would have loved it if it was for me, if it happened to me, if my parents were like that, if they worked it out like that. Because most of the time when parents are having this domestic violence, when there's domestic violence in the home, they most likely think that it doesn't affect children, but it does. It does affect children in so many ways. They become disruptive at school, and even into their adult life, they make difficult choices for themselves that end up biting them, that end up messing their lives. Um, unless you have some sort of good support system, unless you are a fighter and you come out of it on the other side in a positive way, then, fair play to you. But I would say one of the most important things that I wish my parents would have done or would have said, number one is always keep the communication lines open. Always keep the communication lines open. I know that at that point in time, you are going through domestic violence, you're going through physical abuse, you're going through emotional abuse, financial abuse, you're going through a psychological abuse, whatever abuse that you're going through, I know. And it's difficult to be able to concentrate on your surroundings at that point in time, but remember that you have children. Remember you've got people that you're living with, little people that you're living with in your house that you are responsible for. Remember how it is affecting them. Remember how they are feeling, because they are little, they are helpless. They cannot help you. They cannot defend you. They cannot defend themselves. They are looking to you. So keep the communication lines open. Talk to your children. That's one of the important things. The other important thing is reassure your children, protect them. So it doesn't mean that whilst you're going through whatever it is that you're going through, become a reckless parent. And when I say reckless, I mean to avoid them coming to you, asking questions, expressing their needs that you might feel is an irritation because of what you're going through yourself. You just want to get rid of them, so you're going to spoil them, give them money or whatever just to get rid of them. And for them, it becomes a lesson to them. For them, they end up thinking, oh, so if I want to uh, gain mommy or daddy's attention, this is what I'm going to say, because they're not going to pay attention anyway. They're just going to give me what I need or what I want. Don't be reckless. Concentrate. Gather your thoughts together as much as possible and listen to your children, communicate, reassure them, protect them, um, remain focused. Focus on the important issues, which is that, you have little people in your house, your children. And the final one is work on being calm. It's important to gather yourself. I know it's difficult. I know that it will feel like, there's a storm happening, and there will be a storm happening in your house. There will be. But please remain calm. Do your best to be calm. Do your best to be focused and responsible. Plan everything that you do in relation to your children. Put plans in place. Be observant. Look out at what is happening to your children. Because when abuse or physical abuse or domestic violence or domestic abuse is happening in the home, it is a disruption. It is a disruption. It disrupts the whole lifestyle, the whole life of the home, the whole environment in the home. And this affects the children. So as a parent, when there's things like that happening, be observant. Check out what's happening to that child, their attitude, the way they're behaving, the way they're thinking, the way they're feeling. That's why I'm saying, the important thing is to keep the communication open. Talk to your children. So how are
Right.
you feeling? Are you okay? Everything's okay. Reassure them. Tell them you love them. Because, over here in the UK, if you don't put those kind of things in place as a parent, protecting your children, we've got things like social services. Sylvia, you already know that. You've been here in the
Yeah.
UK. Social services, when they come to assessing the child, especially in an abusive family, when they're assessing the children, they are looking for signs. And when a child is not in a position where they are assured and be able to trust their parent and have that relationship with their parents, they're taken away. You won't see
Oh
your
yeah.
children after that,
Oh yeah.
because you're already now termed as an irresponsible mother or father. And in the courts, family courts, it's very difficult to get your children back once social services get involved. So it's
Oh
important
yeah.
that, you try and keep it together as much as possible when it comes to issues of domestic abuse in the home. So those are the three things that I would, suggest for parents that are in that situation. It's important to reassure your children, to protect them, to
Right.
love them, to communicate with them, to reassure them, to make sure that they are okay. Put plans in place. Uh, Over here, we've got Women's Aid. It's quite a national helpline and an organization that helps women with domestic abuse, helps victims of domestic abuse. And they've got family workers that can work with your children. So that's something that you can put in place for your children. You can request for a family worker to be there to support you, to help your children. It helps your children to get out of trouble. It helps your children to be focused, to be rooted and to be well focused. Because at the end of the day, that's when you see children go into centers like we've got here CAMS, which is part of the National Health Service, and these children are very difficult. They're young, and then they're diagnosed with something called ADHD. And
Oh yeah.
let me see what ADHD stands for. I think you know what it stands for, right? ADHD
Yes.
is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Disorder.
So that one now, that's when your children are just labeled with that, when yet they don't need to be labeled with that. It's because of what they're going through. So they become impossible to live with, and they go into the care system, the healthcare system, and they behave all sorts of behaviors, when yet in the first place, if we as parents do our best, even though we're going through stuff, just make sure that our children are protected.
You know what? There's one of my friends here. She's from Zimbabwe. Her daughter is now, I think, 13, or she's going on to 14. When she was 6 or 7, she was called at school and was told that her daughter, they suspected that she must have ADHD. She's a nurse as well, and they also wanted to put her daughter in a special class. And we were talking about it,
Yes.
and I said, don't you ever put your daughter, there's nothing wrong with your daughter, I can tell you that now. You don't need to put her in a special class. She doesn't need to take no medication. And she didn't. That girl is so smart in school right now. She's in what do you call it, middle school right now. She's a straight A student. There's
Yes.
nothing wrong with her. So that's another thing. We have to be careful, especially in diaspora. They are quick to label our kids. They are quick to label, and they put them on a medication, and the child is put in a special class. Imagine if your child is taken away. They can do whatever they want because they'll be the guardians, right? Legally. So they can do whatever they want. So that's why it's important, like you said, reassure your kids, open communication, talk to your kids. I understand that our culture doesn't help. The way we were brought up. For me, I don't remember, not even one day, my father or mother told me that they loved me. Just to say I love you, remember it. I had to learn to
Yes.
say I love you to my son. Now I can say it, even when I talk to him on the phone. Love you. It was so hard for me just to say it.
Yes.
So the way you are brought up, it's so important. So if you want your kids to be whatever you wish your kids are, you have to lay the foundation. You as a parent, because they look up to you, like you said. You are their hero. You are their, whatever mom or dad says, does, that's how things should be done. So if you're fighting and arguing in front of your kids, they're gonna think that's how, we should behave. So yeah, it's very important that we take our children into consideration. The way we speak, the way we just carry ourselves out there, in the world, they will look up to you. So yeah, it's very important. Like you said, I wish my mom had said something about it. I don't even remember talking about it. She left when I was 14, so we could have talked about it. What was going on. I probably asked her, like, why is he beating you? And she told me to, like, oh, you go away, go and play or something like that, just dismiss you, because she didn't want to discuss what was going on between her and my father. So yeah, it's sad, but it's true. But hopefully our generation will break the cycle and do better for our
Yes,
kids.
I mean, that's correct because at the end of the day, us in the diaspora, especially, I think when I was talking to you earlier on about what happens with the domestic violence, especially with families from the diaspora, where
Hmm.
from Zimbabwe, we were, it was normal for domestic violence to happen. And then when we come over here, we become a little bit more educated and realize that it's actually wrong and it's actually a crime and it's actually a detrimental, emotionally, physically, psychologically, everything. It just messes you up, and then you wonder why you are the way you are. You wonder why you act the way you do. So over here, when things are a bit more liberated, then uh, either party, the man or the woman, cannot handle that the other person is now more educated, more liberated in the
Hmm.
way of thinking, and then domestic
Right.
violence breaks out. And that's why we hear so many stories in the diaspora where people have been killed because of domestic violence, because they've not been able to handle the change in
Right.
the relationship, the change in the lifestyle that we live over here, and then it impacts on the children. The children are affected, and then uh, we then obviously cannot handle the attitude that comes from the children as well, because
Oh
in
yeah,
our
that's
minds,
another thing.
the children cannot answer you back. They cannot say anything to you. Who are they? You are
Hmm.
the parent. And this is from where we've learned it from, back home. And so now the
Right.
children is acting out, the children are acting out. They're acting out because of domestic violence. It's not their fault. They can't help it. They see what they see, and so they act that way, you know.
Right.
And so now you as the parent, you can handle the way they're acting, and then you also then become abusive to them, and it just becomes a roller coaster, a
It
never
is.
ending
Yeah.
spiral. And then it's a breakup of the family, the children are taken away and things like that. So it's important to get educated and to understand that you're now living in a different country, different laws, different culture.
Different culture. Yeah.
So embrace the culture. Yeah, embrace the culture, embrace the laws, and educate yourself. Make sure you're
Right.
aware of things that are around you, your surroundings, the laws, what terminologies and everything, and then apply it to your family, and work it out in your family. In other words, be understanding and responsible.
That is so true. I have a 16-year-old daughter, and
Yes.
when she turned 13, teenager, yeah, we butted heads because if she would answer back, I'll be like, "What? I never talked to my mother like that. I wouldn't even dream of answering my mother back like that."
Right.
But my husband kept on saying, you just need to calm down, just listen to her. He kept on like, you know, kind of calming me down. Now it's a lot better. She's 16, she'll be 17 soon. So now I've actually learned to actually shut my mouth and listen to her. And if she
Yes.
says, she just said a first boyfriend a few months ago, when she was 16, and she just came to me and told me straight up, "Oh, you want to see I have a boyfriend." No, it started as, "I have a guy that I like. I think he likes me too." So
Yes.
I had to bite my tongue. I said, "Just listen. Don't comment. Don't discourage. Don't, just listen what she has to say." So she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, okay." So she said, "Do you want to see him? I have a picture of him." So I looked at the picture and said, "He's kind of cute." Just me saying that loosened. I could tell that it loosened things, because she then said the
Yes.
following day, he said, "Oh, I thought you were going to, be mad at me when I told you about that guy that I like, and he likes me." I said, "Why would I be mad at you? I mean, if you like each other, you all can be boyfriend, girlfriend, that's not me to decide." who, as long as you like her, and I mean, you like him and he likes you. So from there on,
Yes.
she started opening up. She told me about, do you want to meet him? I said, oh, so are you dating now? Because last time you told me you just fancied each other. Oh, yeah, he asked me out and I said yes. Do you want to meet him? I said, sure. And he came in here and I did my little, threats. I told him, don't you dare this. You can't get the African out of an African parent. I just threatened him that, you don't come here when I'm not here. And if you come here, you stay in the living room. If I find out that you were here and I'm not here, or you go upstairs, and he was like, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. He turns out to be actually a good kid, you know. He
Oh,
listens to me. He asks me, can I come and hang out with Chardonnay? He texts me. He's got my number. I've got his number. So that's the kind of relationship. So now my daughter, our relationship, all that butting heads just stopped. Just
mm-hmm.
stopped from nowhere. It stopped. So yeah, like you said, this is a different culture, yo. You can't be Dokurova. And that word, that's violence. Dinokubina, dinokuwatsura, dinoku, it's like it's all violence. That's violence. You don't have to be like that. Gone are the days. That was back in the days. I'm 52 now. We're talking of 50 years ago. That's what they did. But we don't have to carry on with that. So
No.
what would you rather do? You want your child to be open to you. Like, I want my daughter to tell me when she's having sex. Once she starts, because I don't want her to get pregnant. I would rather her tells me if she's having sex or if she's thinking of having sex. So I can get some contraception or something. Because if I don't do that and she gets pregnant at 17 or 18, what help does it make to her or me? She
Mm.
just ruined her life and my life too, because I'll live to help with the baby, right? If she has sex when she's 18 or when she's 22, what difference is it going to make to you as a mother? That's how
Mm.
I think now. I've completely changed my outlook when it comes to raising a child. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
When you're ready for sex, we get some contraception in place. I'm not saying, oh, now you're free to have sex. You can do it whenever you like. But I wish my parents had done that to me, because I wouldn't have gotten pregnant when I got pregnant at 18 with my son. I wouldn't have gotten pregnant. I wish she had talked to me about, I mean, I tried. I was a virgin at 18. He actually forced me, he raped me. I didn't know it was rape. First time, he forced me to have sex with him, and I got pregnant with my son. If only I knew about contraception, I wouldn't have gone through this abusive marriage. I mean, you could have raped me or whatever, but I wouldn't have gotten pregnant, right? That's why I wouldn't want to put my daughter in the same situation ever, never. Anyway,
Mm.
thank you so much. I don't know, do you have anything you want to add?
I just want to talk just a little bit about the effects of domestic abuse in relation to children
Yeah,
and how it kind of affects them into their adult life.
right.
Uh, and I'm talking from my own experience and my own perspective, um, regardless of the facts that are out there and statistics, because we know how it ends up affecting children. But for me, in my instance, and I want to say that it really affected the two older siblings, which was my brother and I. So right up until now, my brother hasn't spoken to my father in 25 years. 25 years they've not spoken.
Yeah.
It affected him in a big, big, big way. Uh, because of how he was so abusive, the things that he would then say to us. Like
Mm-hmm.
I remember him saying to my brother, "You'll never amount to anything.
What a
You will
thing to
never
say to
be
your
this. You
child.
will never be that." Yeah. So
Wow.
when you're speaking to your child, in an abusive environment, it's important how you're speaking to your child, because that is
Mm.
who they end up being if they don't personally make a decision that I will never be what my father or mother said I am going to be.
Right.
So he would say things like that. And then in the end, my brother, there was this point where my grandfather passed away, and we were all waiting for my brother to come to the funeral. And when he finally did appear, some
Hmm.
days later, he confronted my father and he said, I don't see the need why I should come to your father's funeral. You failed me as a father yourself. You were abusive to us when we were growing up. You never
Hmm.
showed us any love. Why should I come to your father's funeral? On what grounds, when you couldn't even treat us as your children? You want me
Right.
to respect you? You needed also to show some respect, to show some love to us as children.
Right.
That was quite deep for me when he was saying that, and it was so emotional. And from that day, my brother walked away and he never came back. And it really, really affected him a lot.
Yeah.
It means that the relationship was broken.
Right.
In my instance, there was a time when I was invited to talk about domestic violence in the eyes of a child, and I was talking about how my father was abusive, how I saw him hit my mother, how I saw him kick her in the face and smash her till she had no nose. I saw it all and how it traumatized
Wow.
me.
Hmm.
Um, and I thought, believe it or not, I really thought that as a born again Christian, I've forgiven my father. I've let it go. And I only realized up until only a few months ago, um, we were getting ready. I think you know Janice. Janice and I were getting
Yeah.
ready to talk about airing and really educating and discussing about what is domestic abuse and the various forms.
Yeah.
And I talk about this on my page, on the Magdalena Foundation page. And so I was then in my bed thinking about, oh, domestic violence, and now I have to plan this thing. And then all of a sudden, something that I had forgotten about how he hit my mother that day
Hmm.
just came to my memory, and I cried my eyes out. And I realized that, oh my goodness, I haven't forgiven this man. I'm still angry at him. I'm still
Yeah.
mad at how he treated my mother. And bear in mind that my mother, she passed away in 1995, a long time ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't due to domestic abuse, no. She had an illness, it was cancer, so she passed away
Hmm.
with cancer.
Oh.
But I remember her saying to me, oh, I saw your father in town, and I was running away from him, and I nearly got knocked over by a car. At the
Wow.
time when she told me, I didn't understand. It was
Right.
only now that I understood that domestic violence, it carries on with you until I don't know when, until you're able to
Yeah.
deal with it. It stays with you. It is long
Right.
lasting. And these are the effects of domestic abuse in the eyes of a child. They are
Yeah.
long lasting, and they
Right.
they project, or they are evidential in the way that you act and behave as a child, and even into your adulthood, the decisions that you then make. And if even worse, the feelings that you harbor and carry all your life.
Right.
And I just want to say, if you are an adult now and you saw domestic violence, or you went through domestic violence, or your family was dysfunctional and full of domestic abuse, whoever it was, mother or father, work on
Hmm.
letting it go. It'll make you a better person. You will become a better person, and it will set you free. So
Yeah.
work on letting it go, work on forgiving, because I realized that, oh my goodness, I haven't forgiven my father. And things of anger arose up, and even my attitude when I was speaking to him arose up. And I have to say, three quarters, not even three quarters, all of us keep our distance from him right now.
Right.
We communicate with him very little. My brother does not communicate with him whatsoever. He says he's forgiven him, but I'm not in his heart for me to say or know that that's how, he
Yeah.
really has done so. But it does affect you in a big, 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 big way as an adult. And
Yeah.
it was kind of sad for me when people were posting a few weeks ago or last week, Happy Father's Day, Happy Father's Day, people
Mm-hmm.
with their fathers and putting pictures. I couldn't do that. I have
Right.
pictures of my father, but I could not bring myself to do it, to put those pictures on Facebook and say Happy Father's Day, because that would have been lying. That would have been saying, how can I say Happy Father's Day when we didn't have a happy childhood with this
Right.
man who was
Right.
abusive?
Well,
And
that's
even up to his old age.
yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, that's trauma. That's why you need when people say forgiveness doesn't really help. You have to work on yourself. Counseling helps.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
because if you work on yourself, that will be another topic we can talk about next time. Trauma. That's because that was trauma he was causing. You watching your mom being, did like that. So yeah, forgiving without working on yourself doesn't work. Like me, when I was writing my book, when I started writing about my mother, that now I understand why she left, I just broke down. Like you said, you broke down and said, I broke down and I started crying because I felt like, oh, was I blamed her? And yet it wasn't her fault. She actually needed help too. So when I realized it,
Yes.
I was like, yeah, it made me feel really sad that I can't tell her or say, what I probably would have said something to her like, you left me or whatever, like, why did you do that? Why would you leave us? Why did you take us with you? But you couldn't take us with her. So yeah, it's for me writing the book, I had to go back to visit
Mm-hmm.
all those incidents that happened to me. And like you said, you can actually feel it, if you go back there and
Yes.
just go deep, you can actually, it's like it's happening again all over. The sadness, the anger, the all the emotions that you felt back then, they can actually be triggered by just you going back. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not easy. But we are going to continue talking about domestic violence, and we hope to inspire and encourage people out there, especially women like us, who have been domestic violence victims, relationship wise or as children. And I'm aware that it's not just women that are victims, men too. But we are kind of talking about our experience, and we are women. And our abusers were men, and our fathers were men, so that's why when we refer to she, he as an abuser and she as a victim. But it's not like we are dismissing that men are also victims of domestic violence. Anyway, do you have
Absolutely.
anything else to add, or we can call it a day?
No, I don't think I have any more to add. I just want to encourage, that if you are a victim of domestic abuse, just make sure that you stay safe and you keep the communication lines open with your children.
Mm-hmm.
And also make sure you have a plan in place. You have somebody supporting you professionally. You also have family that you trust, a friend that you trust who you can get help from or support from. Make sure you have the emergency number to ring. Here in the UK, it's 999. I think in the US, it's
Nine
119. Is that correct?
911.
911.
Yes.
911. So it's important to keep those numbers, remember them.
Oh,
Use
yes.
them if you are in danger, if your life is
Right.
in danger. Ring the emergency line. Don't ring the help hotline number of the organizations, because they'll just tell you, dial this extension, dial that number,
Yeah.
dial 999 or 911 if
One.
you know that you are in danger. Otherwise, take care of yourself, be safe, and just, protect your children.
All right. Thank you so much. That was very
All
educative.
right.
Your three nuggets and your advice. I really enjoyed this live with you. So we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.